Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 694 to 695 for the 18th to the 19th of January. And so the frontline report, the frontline changes report is recorded separately and posted on the main channel already, because the video is super long. There's so many things that has happened over the past 2 days, so I have to separate it, because if not, some of you guys will be complaining or not even watch the video, because the video will be deemed too long to watch, as if everything must be summarized into, yeah, someone is winning, someone is losing. Anyway, so in terms of the weather in Ukraine continues to return back into minus territory, negative territory. Is below freezing, so we're gonna see ice and snow and frozen water, but it's not frozen enough to stop flowing water, but we shall see. And the Russian forces continue their offensive in multiple regions. In fact, over the past 2 days, it seems like the offensive have gained pace and are becoming even stronger. But we first cover Kharkiv Front. Before we go to Kharkiv, just next door to Kharkiv at the Sumy region, yeah, this is the Sumy region. The Ukrainian forces released a video of them firing randomly into Russian positions while they are probably in this area here. And this geolocated over at KRYNKY, just off, basically, at the border region between Russia and Ukraine in the Sumy region. So this is just probably nothing much. They wasted a lot of ammo, as far as I can tell. Based on the video, they basically firing at nothing, into the mist, in the snowy mist, and they just fire RPGs and whatnot. I think it's a waste of ammunition, and it doesn't really achieve anything. So but that happened, it's geolocated, so I'm telling you. Over the Kharkiv front, the Russian forces continue to bombard Ukrainian positions in the Voschansk region, and particularly there's an airstrike hitting within Voschansk itself, and there is also another one is artillery hitting another ammunition depot over at the Hatishsk. I don't know how to pronounce that. So this continues to be a major threat for the Ukrainian forces, as the Russian forces seems to be softening up the Ukrainian defense over in the Voschansk region, because this is the major front line, and as I mentioned multiple times before, this is a major junction, and from this area here, the Russian forces can break out in multiple directions, and this will be a disaster if Voschansk fall. And this will allow the Russian forces to take the entire eastern part of the Siversk Donetsk River all the way to the Kupyansk Front, where the Oskil River is. It's actually very, very dangerous for the Ukrainians, and all these airstrikes are just or artillery strike is just going to distract the Ukrainians from sending forces to reinforce the major front line that it requires help. And they have to continue to send in more forces into the front line around this Kharkiv front to be prepared for a Russian offensive. So we move on over at the Kupyansk front. At the Kupyansk front, suddenly things heat up over the past 2 days. Very interestingly, yesterday I didn't do SITREP, and I decided to do a major offensive over in the Avdiivka, Kreminna, Ivanyivka region, Berestove region, Olyansky region, over at Petropavlivka and Sinkivka. All these reports is not Russian propaganda. These reports are all coming up from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, coming from Deep State UA, all Ukrainian sources, and then I realized that it's also then corroborated by RIBA and also the Russian Defense Ministry, bits and pieces over there, here and there. So this is all corroborated information, and the Ukrainians are only reported to have counterattack over at Sinkivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. And there is some significant changes, particularly in terms of the frontline changes of Olyansky. Russian forces captured this tree line. I already mentioned in the frontline changes report. Into more details, you can check it out. Ukrainian forces have this tree line just northeast of Ivanyivka. So the fighting definitely is going to continue in this region here. Ukrainians is going to have a lot of problems, as they cannot hold. Like, this area is going to be super hard to hold in this area, because the Russians have this entire tree line. This is going to be the next target for the Russians. And further south, there is a clarification of a front line. The entire region here which was a gray zone or a conflict information is no longer that conflict. The front line is now confirmed to be around here. And this area here is a bit of a gray zone as the Russians are pushing Kreminna at this region here. They are pushing Kreminna, and Kreminna is over here. So they are pushing this area here. So this area is still not 100% firm. It's still considered somewhat of a gray zone, but the Russians are pushing this area here. But this area here is definitely Ukrainian now, because Rybar's mapping have acknowledged that Avdiivka and Pishani is definitely not under Russian control. Geolocation of my Kreminna Caprice showing that the Russians are operating around this area here. This is probably part of the offensive around the Berestove region. This Berestove offensive attack is reported by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They acknowledge the Russian attack towards Berestove in this area here through these two reports. So the Russians are actively fighting over the past 2 days in this area here. So very interesting situation and developments, because we have I basically thought that the Kupyansk Front is going to go dead. Suddenly, the Russians decided to do some massive offensive. So this definitely also might have caught the Ukrainians by surprise, because of this front line has been broke through. The Ukrainians have broke through this Kreminna region here. Oh no, the Russians have broke through the Ukrainian lines at Kreminna region. They also broke the line over at Lolyansk region. So the Ukrainians definitely also did not expect such a major attack in this area here over the past 2 days. We move further south over at the Kreminna Front. This is Kreminna city. At the Kreminna Front, strategic situation remains pretty much the same as before. The Russians are attacking Kherny, Yampolivka in the Dubrova and the Siversk forestry region. Ukrainians are also attacking at Kherny, Yampolivka and Dubrova region. So this strategic situation didn't really seem to change much. Some geolocation over at the Kherny region showing that the mortar crew of the Ukrainians are getting hit by suppression, and then there is Russian forces getting shelled by the Ukrainians as well. So this is probably they are shelling each other in this area here over at Kherny and Yampolivka. The distance between the front line from the settlements is around 3 kilometers, so you can kind of estimate how far this forest is. So say big not big, say small not small. Over at the Siversk Front, this is Siversk. At the Siversk Front, the Russian forces continue their Siversk in the Bilohorivka offensive. They are attacking Bilohorivka. And in the latest report from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they reported fighting over at Verkhem-Okanyamsky, which is also always kind of a surprise, because Verkhem-Okanyamsky is a kind of awkward place. If the Russians capture it, they can go straight to Siversk and they will collapse the entire front line over on 2 sides. So with the Russians attacking this area here, they can actually ejaculate down or attack northward. So this is a quite a interesting place, and definitely the Ukrainians had always been pretty good at defending Verkhem-Okanyamsky. However, what they did lose is Vasily. The Russian Defense Ministry announced the capture of Vasily. This is, you see, MOD Russia English. This is a Russian announcement of the capture of Vasily, and this is actually reported by Rybar as well. So the Russian forces finally, after days of attacking Vasily, we are talking about number of days from it started off with some probing on the 25th to 26th of December, and then 9th to 10th, and then 12th to 18th. So 12th to 18th is one full week. So a full week of push. And previously, the fighting over at Vasily has always been a bit part. It's always very sporadic. So this sudden sustained offensive by the Russians in this region here definitely will have caught the Ukrainians by surprise as well. And this is a very remote region, so it is very difficult for the Ukrainians to hold this area here, and the Russians basically took advantage and basically captured Vasily. And however, the Ukrainians have not acknowledged fully. They did acknowledge the loss of certain grounds around Vasily. According to Deep State UA's reporting, they say that most of this settlement has been captured by the Russian side, and the rest of this area here is gray zone. So this is the claim by the Deep State UA, but given this, yeah, I think Russians is going to capture it. There is some geographical peculiarity around this region here. Do watch the frontline report for more on that, because I can't show you on this map. And there's some frontline changes over at Avdiivka. You can also watch the frontline report for it. And further over in the Bakhmut Front, this is Bakhmut City. At the Bakhmut Front, some frontline, there are some reports, some geolocation of Russian artillery hitting Ukrainian ATGM just off Orikovo-Vasilivka. Further south, over at the northern part, in the Bodanivka region, Russian forces continue to be reporting to be fighting around the Bodanivka region, particularly where not so clear. But we do have some geolocation, very interesting geolocations, like the Russians have a flag planted on this house over here, and the Ukrainians promptly destroyed that house. And the Ukrainians also geolocated to be at this area here, getting hit by the FPV drone. So this actually expanded the front line a little bit for the Ukrainian side, because they definitely cannot be just next door to the Russians. They definitely have some kind of buffer in this area here. And so further south, there is geolocation of Ukrainians yet back into this tree line. So definitely the Ukrainians have retaken this tree line again. This area here is a bit unknown, most probably under the Ukrainian control as well, most likely, but currently is gray zone. We're not sure, because both mappings claim both sides, both the tree lines. So the geolocation is very important to do clarification. We've moved down to the southern part of the southern flank of the Bakhmut Front. Russian forces attacking Ivanivsky, Klishchevka, as well as Andriivka. Klishchevka, do note that it can also be attacking from the east, because we do not know exactly where. Most likely it's not from the north, because if it's coming from the north, you will see reports about fighting within the village, and it's kind of pointless to fight within the village because it's in the low ground. It's basically a kill zone. So the fighting is definitely either in the north or in the east, in this region here. If it's going through the center, we will know, because the Russians probably will have to capture the entire high ground before they can go through the center, through the settlement. Tentatively, this is not the case. And we move on. There's nothing at the New York front. Over at the Avdiivka front, this entire front line has went up in flames. It's just went nuts. So look at all the red icons. Russian forces attacking Novokalinove over at the Novobakhmutivka region, Stepove near the coke plant, in the northern part of the Avdiivka city, over at KRYNKY region, over at this near the Kashtanove, the Donetsk filtration station region here, over at this industrial area in the southeast, over in the south of Avdiivka, over at Opitne, Tonenke, in the western part of Vodian, at Povomaysky and Nevelsky. Basically, the entire front line of the Avdiivka front has been activated. The Russians have went into a full push across the entire front line, and they are just going ham around this area here. In case you don't know what is ham is a food that you put in the bread. You can just eat it raw, or you can just eat it with the bread. It's actually pretty nice. I can put cheese on it, and then you can call it a hamburger. So over at so the geolocation over at there's this tree line. The TOS-1A, this is the wrong color. Hitting Ukrainian forces along this tree line. So showing the Ukrainians are still in this region here, which means the Russians have not really progressed at all in this area here. This attack has not been working out. The Russians are still trying to soften the defenses in order to push through. And another other interesting changes is the Russians activating over in the KRYNKY region. They are attacking in this region here, and has been reported by Deep State UA. So usually the reports about fighting over in the eastern part of Avdiivka front is usually by the Russians. This time around, we have acknowledgement by the Ukrainians, and so there are some geographical peculiarity in this region here. Do watch the frontline changes report again, I have to say, because it's by right, it's supposed to be the same report, but if I put them all together, this video is going to be 40 over minutes. A lot of people will not click it, and it's just a waste of my potential revenue. So I put it into two different videos. I at least have some chance to increase the revenue. So just bear with it. No choice. I need the revenue to continue to report. Interesting difference is that there's a geolocation of of a airstrike on Ukrainian positions at the Donetsk filtration station. It was previously believed that the Russians have captured it. So so it's kind of weird that we see a geolocation of Ukrainians within it, which means that at some time the Ukrainians have actually either retaken it or the Russians have never taken it. I cannot remember the last geolocation because it was probably some time ago. That but it's probably just based on reporting, because we have this overlapping claims by the Ukrainians claim that they have this area here. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this goes. The Russians also expanded the their zone of control around the industrial area, and was reportedly attacking and trying to expand out of this Vinogradniki region. And most significant is actually the breakthrough in the south of Avdiivka. The Russian forces suddenly pushed through the south, and they are going down the road, going past this Saska Ochota, this restaurant. They call it the Tsar Hunt. They in translation. So probably they are selling some hunted meat or something, you know, deer meat or what. I'm not sure. So the Russians are pushing down this road, and there are rumors that the Russians are in the first few houses in this southern suburb of the Avdiivka. I can't confirm it yet. This is just a rumor I saw on Twitter. But the Russians are pushing through this area very suddenly, so unexpected for sure. And this is actually causing concerns by the Ukrainian side, because this report is from Deep State UA. You can see Deep State UA. The Deep State is the one that is reporting this breakthrough from the south. It's not the Russian. This is not Russian propaganda. This is Ukrainian self-propaganda, counter propaganda. You know, so this is definitely a situation to watch, whether the Russians manage to bring the battle into this southern part of Avdiivka. If the battle goes into the southern part, Ukrainian positions, the frontline positions in this area here will be untenable. They will have to redraw. So this push and this area here, this is going to be a very strategically problematic situation for the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians will have to decide: do the forces that is manning the front line here, should they go on a counter attack and risk death? Although sitting there also might die. And the Russians may also, you know, conduct into a pincer as they push through. So this is a very complicated situation for the Ukrainians. They have to, you know, try to find a way to go around this, or the lines may actually collapse. Because the rumors coming out from Avdiivka is that they are not having enough men. These rumors, not enough men, not enough ammunition, whatever they need, they don't even have the basic necessity. So this is actually these rumors are not sounding very good for the Ukrainian side. Over the Opinion region, there is this massive retraction of this disputed zone, and it seems that again the Ukrainian mapping is more conservative and more accurate. So we are going back to Deep State UA's, very close to Deep State UA's mapping. So this is actually where the front line is currently being drawn. Ukrainian Deep State UA's mapping is always sometimes slow, but never fake, never over bullish. So that's something that I appreciate about Deep State UA. The rivals mapping sometimes can be very bullish because some of the intel that they are getting is wrong. So previously they mentioned that the Russians have reached very close to Khimik region, and they were probably on the verge of attacking. And again, this is the second time or third time, probably the second time that they mentioned they're very close to Khimik, the 9th district of Avdiivka, and it did not turn out to be true, or they lost the entire territory that they claim to have reached. And this is very disturbing, but still there is nothing better than Raiba, unfortunately, and it is what it is. There is probably military map, but they don't do reporting, so we shall see how this goes. They don't do the textual reports, but we shall see. If need to, I will add military maps into the sources as well, but tentatively it doesn't need to, because it tends to be a duplicate with what Raiba is reporting. Russian forces attacking KRYNKY. So previously this is reported by the Ukrainians again. Previously the Ukrainians claimed that the Russians attacking Giverny. Now they are claiming that they're attacking KRYNKY. So that's interesting, although they're just next door to each other. And so the main thing, there's a geolocation of Russian forces attacking Ukrainian positions within Pervomaiske, as well as a geolocation of Russian forces just off this heavy entrenchment. You can see this is a very heavily bombarded region of the Ukrainian forces. So the Russians are getting very close into this area just on the eastern part of Nebelske. I think strategically the one more significant is not these two. Has been going on for some time. It's actually this one. From Rodian hitting westward, if they go through and break through in this to the northern part of Pervomaiske can fall, and they will bring the battle to Netelove, and this is going to be another disaster. But we mentioned this before, and it did not happen. So for those that are supporting Ukraine, you can have some hope that the frontline soldiers on the Ukrainian side actually is able to hold this line. But situation is very on the Russians' initiative. We move on over at the Donetsk Front. Over at this Marinka front line, the Russian forces reportedly attacking Krasnohorivka towards Georgievka and the Marinka region, probably also in the north. And they're fighting in the north of Novo-Mikhailivka and south of Novo-Mikhailivka. The north and south is actually reported by Deep State UA. They mentioned that the Russians are trying to put Novo-Mikhailivka into a pincer in the north and south pincer in this area here. Frontline is still on the southern edge of Novo-Mikhailivka. So definitely situation is very difficult. Russian Defense Ministry claimed the Ukrainians counterattack in the Novo-Mikhailivka region. Yeah, but I'm not sure where. The Russians are also stopped being crabby. Previously, the Russians are pushing westward in the south of Novo-Mikhailivka. This is currently stopped by the Ukrainians. There's no more Russians to push in this area here. Geolocation north of Volodymyrivka shows the Ukrainian forces along this tree line. So that actually marks the front line very accurately. Very close. We do not know if the Russians are actually in this area here. This unclear. Deep State UA's mapping is a bit in this way. So definitely both is not wrong. We shall see how this goes over in the Volodymyrivka region. And at the very end of the Donetsk Front, we have a Lancet attack on the Ukrainian vehicle along the tree towards the road towards Velika Novosilka. And so that's all, and that's another indication of the Lancets are wreaking havoc. Over at the Zaporizhzhia Front, this is the Velika Novosilka sector of the Zaporizhzhia Front. Ukrainian Defense Ministry says that the Russians are attacking south of Uruzhaine and west of Staromayoske. So the reports is on the 18th. This is not mentioned on the 19th report. So this is probably a one-off, and it's definitely very frightening. If you are the strategic commander or the planner for the Ukrainian military, the strategic situation across the entire Ukraine, this is going to be so complicated, so messy, because you really do not know where the main push is, and the Russians suddenly can attack from any directions. So that's quite bad. Nothing at the Huyaipole sector. Over at the Orikhiv sector, this is the Orikhiv sector. The Russian forces continue their usual their offensive in this region here, with fighting being reported at Malotomashka. I'm not sure this is fighting or this bombardment. Probably bombardment. And then fighting at Robotine and the western part of Verbove. Information is coming from the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. They mentioned about western part of Verbove and Robotine as well. So this is definitely still ongoing. Ukraine is definitely holding whatever they can. Honestly, strategically speaking, I'm not sure how worth it is to hold this salient if you are unable to go into the offensive. But of course, that would mean that they might as well don't fight, which is actually also not a tenable thing, because it don't make sense to tell them not to fight, because they are defending their country. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. So over at the Kreminna sector, fighting reported at Zerebianki again on the 18th of January, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. They claim that they hit Ukrainian manpower in the Zerebianki region, but that's about it. It's a one-day thing again. So on the 18th, the Russians hit multiple locations on a one-off over the Velika Novosilka sector and the Kreminna sector, while they actually make the main push over at the Kupyansk Front, which is actually over here. So very Wow, scary stuff. And we are now 24 minutes, which is why I cannot add the frontline changes into this report, because 100% I know that we're going to go into the 40 over minute mark, and yeah, a lot of people is going to complain. But you know, only the wisest, the most intelligent, most handsome, you know, most beautiful, and most epic, you know, legendary people will appreciate long reports. You know, then if you are by this point you're still here, you are the people that know who is there, you know, who knows what are the good stuff. And over at this Kherson Front, the final front line, this is the Kherson Front, Kherson City, and the Ukrainian forces is still at KRYNKY. For those that are complaining and say that I'm fake news, you know, you can go and fact yourself. The Russian forces is still trying to push into KRYNKY, but there are signs of crack. Of the Ukrainian line is starting to crack. According to Ryba, so Deep State UA and both Ryba, both Russian and Ukrainian defense OSIN, both Russian and Ukrainian open source intelligence, both reported that the Russians are hitting the logistic very badly. So Deep State reported that the Russians are killing their logistics, and if you scroll down over at the Ryba's report, they claim the same thing. They are disrupting the logistic. They are hitting the logistic very hard, because the Russian drones are hunting for Ukrainian boats, and they're constantly sinking all these boats. And if you don't have the boats, you don't have sufficient boats, the Ukrainians are going to have a very hard time trying to reinforce KRYNKY. And the latest information coming from Ryba claims that the estimated numbers of Ukrainian forces now at KRYNKY is actually down to very low. Let me find the number. Down to just 80 soldiers. So there's only up to 80 soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers at KRYNKY, and this is going to be a disaster if there's only 80 soldiers over at KRYNKY. And and even resupplying for 80 soldiers is going to be quite difficult. You need at least one boat per day to send in food and ammunition and whatnot. And so due to the low numbers of the Ukrainian forces at KRYNKY, the Russian forces are now able to attack into KRYNKY much easier. However, it's not a cakewalk. So far, according to the information coming from, I think, Deep State, they say that the Russians are unable to hold any strong any positions well within it. I think it's Ukraine. They fail to gain a foothold. So the Russians are, despite they can attack in, they can't hold position easily. So probably due to artillery, I guess Ukrainian artillery is still active, although they lost so many of them over this front line. So we shall wait and see. And the Ukrainian Defense Ministry on the 19th report continue to assert that the Russians are still attacking the beachhead. So over even Ukrainian Defense Ministry acknowledged that the Ukrainians still holding KRYNKY. So yeah, yeah, for those that believe the wrong information, that's on you. I have, my conscience are clear, I put it that way. Talking about boats getting hit by FPV drones, you can see this is another geolocation by a military summary of Ukrainian boats getting hit along this route to KRYNKY. And further geolocations is all quite bad. We have air defense, the Lancet hitting an air defense gun. So not sure what type of gun is this. They hit an air defense gun, and then after that they hit a Iris-T air defense system. So we have yet another two SAM system getting hit in the north of Kherson, and around Kherson also disaster struck. Lancet hitting an M777 Hawk, and then another Lancet hitting another towed artillery, which is of unclear nature. So artillery systems are still operating, helping the Ukrainians to defend the beachhead. The Russians are still pushing, and the Russians hunting for all this artillery system that is supporting this KRYNKY beachhead. I think the end is not far away from KRYNKY. I don't think they are able to hold this position. I think the number of Russian troops involved in hitting KRYNKY is even more than 80, given the airstrikes, helicopters, artillery systems. It's going to be quite bad. So otherwise, that's all from the Kherson Front. And that's it. This is the summary for the day of 694 to 695 for the 18th to the 19th of January. Super long report. Do press the like button, subscribe. I need your support in order to continue to report, because this is very taxing, and the revenue makes it worth it and makes it answerable to my family, because yeah, this is a huge commitment. And I'll see you guys in the next update.